Welcome to episode 415 of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. I am Dave Deacon, and we got a great episode for you. In this episode, we talk about everything from building relationships with stakeholders to building actual buildings to ensuring that the future of research is strong, to getting creative about delivering that research from campus to Oklahomans and what it takes to keep agriculture strong in our state and the region, really. All of this with Dr. Jason Lusk, Vice President and Dean of Agricultural Programs at Oklahoma State University. We'll get to our chat with him in just a minute, but before we do, if you're new to the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast, I would personally like to welcome you and invite you to hit that follow button where you get your podcasts. Also, I'm sure you've heard it, we announced a couple weeks ago that we're going to be a part of the High Plains Journal Live, which is coming up August 6th through the 8th at the Century 2 Convention Center just up the road in Wichita. And you can register at live.hpj.com, or we have a link to the High Plains Journal Live on our website, reddirtagronomy.com. We do look forward to seeing you in Wichita, and be sure and stop by as we record a few episodes of the podcast from High Plains Journal Live. Let's kick off this episode with a quick trip around the table for an introduction to the dream team of dirt and everything that grows from it. Let's start off with Oklahoma State University Extension Precision Nutrient Management Specialist.
Just out of curiosity, as faculty, I look at it, the department head is a rough position because you're catching it from all sides. Does it really improve much by the time you get to Dean?
Dr. Brian Arnell. And next to him is Oklahoma State University Cropping Systems Specialist.
The funny thing, you said there were some people that are made for admin, and you can see it, but you didn't say the other side of the coin that said that, and then there's Jason Warren.
Dr. Josh Lofton. And across from him is a postdoctorate in the Plant and Soil Sciences Department at Oklahoma State University.
They don't take IOUs, right? Yeah.
Dr. Radon Sherry. With all the formalities out of the way, let's get to our chat with Dr. Jason Lusk. You are listening to the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. Brian, go ahead and introduce our guest.
He's got the longest title that I'm aware of, but we are more than happy to have on Dr. Jason Lusk. Is it president first or dean first? Vice president,
dean. Yep.
And dean of the Ferguson College of Ag. I was honored, pleased, or able to actually work with Dr. Lusk before he went into the administrative roles. I don't know how many people knew that he was faculty here on campus for a couple years, and so it was fun. I was just a young pup, and he was coming in, and I got to watch him do his stuff. But Dr. Lusk, could you kind of talk the pathway, your academic and then through administrative pathway to get to the role now?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about whether I give you the 3 or the 30-minute version of that.
About 5.
5. Okay, so we'll see how I do on that one.
So 15.
I think there are kind of two kinds of people that wind up in this job. One is they had a design on it and planned a career to become a dean. That was not me. So if you would have went to my former self, probably when you were talking about my years when I had fewer gray hairs, I would have said, no, I don't want to be. In fact, I remember I got my first job out of grad school was at Mississippi State as a faculty member. The guy that was the department head of Ag Economics at Mississippi State, John Lee was his name, former administrator of the ERS, had thousands of employees all across the country, been in the White House with Reagan and Carter, we kind of worshiped the guy. He knew everybody. And I remember one day in the hallway, he was running around frantically. I said, Dr. Lee, what are you doing? And he said, somebody's been stealing toilet paper from the bathrooms, and I've got to figure out where it is. And I thought, oh, that's what a department head does. And so from my first, experience as a faculty member, I realized, a department head is not like the career path that you really want to pursue. So that's how I went about my career. Like, I want to build up the research side of my portfolio, impact students, and that's really what I spent my time doing. And hopped around a few universities till I landed here and stayed for 12 years. And that, I felt like I built a solid and impactful research career. Had a lot of great graduate students. But you just come a point in time where you're asking, am I having the kind of impact that I want to have? and is there a way I could have a bigger impact? And then you look at the things you enjoy doing over time. And what I found was, I could publish the one extra journal article, and it would get read by some peers. But what I found was trying to engage with the public, I thought on the margin was having a bigger impact. I felt like I could engage with stakeholders in ways that I felt could have a bigger impact and draw resources. So that's what got me thinking about, and I got elected to be president of our national association, and I got to see, you can make decisions that impact lots of people at once. And I thought that's kind of fun. And it really does. I think the right kind of person that shifts to administration, you stop being so much about what is it about my program, you start thinking about what can I do for other people's program. And so I think a key characteristic of a good administrator is, can you get satisfaction out of other people succeeding? Because there's certain people that can't, and there's certain people that can, or you can probably maybe work on yourself a little bit to get there. But I for whatever reason, I have always been able to enjoy other people being successful. And so department head job at Purdue came open. I thought, if I'm going to try this thing, I want to do it at a big place that has enough resources. Went there for a few years, been doing that, did that about 6 years. And I just thought, okay, I've done this long enough. I still had a pretty active research program. I was not expecting that to happen, but it just emerged. And so I thought, I kind of got a foot in both camps. I don't feel like I'm doing either one quite as effectively as I could. I need to choose one. And the job came open here, and I applied. And to be honest, if this one had worked out, I would have been happy just, being back on faculty, doing the normal gig.
So it's interesting to me because I know I have some peers that from the day I met them, I'm like, Dean, that they want to be president. Like I can name two right now that from the moment, even as a grad student, looking at them as a faculty member, is like, they're on path. That is their whole goal. And you see them and how they operate and the things they do and the strategic moves. Like they're the people I'm thinking are very strategic. For your role, was there things like when you made that decision to go administrative, did you prepare, or was it just the opportunity is there and so you went for it? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that like a lot of us, you get active in your professions, and so you get elected to be in leadership roles. And some of that's not really, you do that because you want to help your peers. It's probably, if I had to be honest, there's a little bit of like, what doors will this open for me? And had I not done those, I don't think I would have been competitive for a head job. I would say going to Purdue as a department head, I didn't really, again, being a department head was not the career objective. So to do that job, I wanted to do it at a place where it would create more opportunities. So that was strategic, but it was, I think, opened a set of doors where I even if I went back to faculty, I'd have a different set of opportunities there. And so, but it wasn't strategic in the sense of like what it was to say, like, if I came from this institution to apply for dean's jobs, what are that set of possibilities that would exist versus, I don't want to pick out a school because your listeners might be an alum of one of them, but go into another choice. So that was a strategic choice, I think, to say. But I think coming here too, I think we came here because we know we like living here. We like the people, and we knew the institution somewhat well. Although I learned when I stepped in this job, I didn't know it nearly as well as I thought I did. So there's that piece of it. And so, but it's not like I don't feel like I'm trying to make conscious decisions today about what will be my next career move. I feel like if I do the job in front of me well, I will have opportunities, and I'm not going to worry about that. The best thing I can do to help myself in the future is to do this job really well.
As a faculty and looking at others, I appreciate that out of admin, and I appreciate that out of faculty, because honestly, you look at those people that are vying for the jobs early on, and they're creating their packages, even as an associate or early full. It's like, just do your job. That's me, but so I appreciate it when the focus is on the now, doing the task at hand and doing it well.
The funny thing, you said there were some people that are made for admin, and you can see it, but you didn't say the other side of the coin that said that. And then there's Jason Warren,
who jumps in. It's like, where the heck did that come from?
But sometimes you need that in administration. You need the people that weren't geared that way, because they open up thoughts and processes and ways of doing things that you wouldn't have come up with otherwise.
And the funny thing is, when he was trying, talking to Brian, talking to myself on, I don't know if I want this job or not, I know they want me to go in there and ask the questions that can't. And I'm like, sometimes you need that on admin, is like, okay, we have to walk the line, but we need somebody that'll ask the hard questions that my faculty want to know that maybe I can't, in the interest of my position, ask those, and that's definitely that side of admin, and that's definitely Jason Warren.
Well, and I do think he's a good example of this too. I think I always felt like I was able to be an effective department head because I know I'm a good faculty member. If this job doesn't work out, this is not the end for me, So that enables you to make harder decisions that sometimes you wouldn't make if your career and life depended on this job, And I think Jason's a great example. He's a very effective faculty member. He doesn't need to have the job he has now to be good and successful, and that enables him to make decisions and recommendations that he wouldn't otherwise.
Well, and I think it's very interesting. I think I told, Dean came and when he was interviewing, came and talked to Ag Faculty Council. And I think one of the things that I said is that I want admin that is there when I need them, but is not there when I don't. They're not that micromanager thing. And I do have to say that when I like Dean Kuhn, he's the one that hired me, and I didn't interact with him a whole lot on a day-to-day basis, and that was good with me. I've interacted with you a lot more, and so you actually have changed my mind on interacting with upper admin a lot more because it's been because it's never been picky, micromanaging. It's like big picture, always, your opinion, and you've been very good at going and asking faculty for opinions, and sometimes you gotta go against your faculty, and that's the way that the department or the college has to run. But it's nice to actually get somebody that wants it, hears it, and then sometimes has to make the hard decision to go against it, for the longevity of the college.
Well, I appreciate that, and just because I asked for feedback doesn't mean I can always do something about it. I'm still trying to get you that key, by the way. So
that's why we brought you here. It's really
it's a shame. You didn't know it.
No, I mean it's funny because Tom was here when I was on faculty, and that really was my attitude. As few interactions that I have with him, the better off.
Usually, when I interacted with Dean Kuhn, it was because I was in trouble, and so there's the few of those as possible. It would be good.
But the reason I think for me it's important to interact with faculty is let's be honest, I don't do anything that creates original value. It's the faculty that are doing the work. You're teaching the class. You're out engaging with the producer. You're doing the research. You're doing the extension. And so if I don't know what y'all are doing, how can I promote what we're doing? How can I help make the connections we need to be successful? And so I feel like, and that's actually one thing I enjoy about the job is getting to learn about what other people are doing. That to me is like one of the best perks and features of it is getting to understand what people are doing and try to represent them well, although maybe sometimes misrepresent what they do well.
All of us as faculty have gone through some sort of administration change. You went through an administration change, and that we just had a new president, transition. So what has been challenges for you in your position now that you have people that are dependent on you underneath you, plus you have a new boss, if you will, and making all those changes on how that kind of, I will say it was maybe a sloppy transition, but that was a challenging transition of new admin, and then working it down with your faculty.
Yeah, I mean this part is a little different than being a faculty member. I think for folks that haven't been on faculty, don't really understand how a university works, I think the best way to think about a faculty member is they're like mini entrepreneurs. And so a department head or dean interacting with a faculty member, you kind of can try to help and herd cats, a little bit, but really that faculty member is generating their own resources. They've got a little mini business you all are running. And so that changes like when you're in my job, because I now have a boss that expects me to do things, and really is reliant on that. And in my case, you mentioned my multiple titles, Brian, and that's because I really do have two bosses. I report to the provost, which is the person really over the academic side of the institution, and I report to the president, which is sort of more the external engagement piece and the overall leadership. And so I don't think I really realized how much energy and investment that I didn't overtly think about it, but you spend really trying to figure out how do I work with these people and understand what they're trying to accomplish so that I can be successful with them, until we had that transition and turnover. Because then I was like, well, how do I engage with the new people and their team, and what do they want? And that shift really in my mind, thought, wow, I spent a lot of time trying to think about that previously. So, again, you just do the job, and I think try to represent, you're always doing two things. You're trying to help the administration pursue their priorities while also representing your interests and faculty and making sure they understand what you do well. And I think the good news is both the administrations I worked with here saw agriculture as an important part of the university, and a core to the mission is one of the things that attracted me to the job is I don't want to be somewhere where ag is like a leftover thought that's just something we do. I want to be at a place where it's core to the mission of the university, and I think that's been true of both of the administrations I've served under, and that's good. They have very different personalities and different ways of engaging, but I think they've both viewed me as an ally, and I think I'm pretty optimistic about the future, where we're going. But yeah, it was an interesting few months. There's no doubt about it.
It's a good way to put it.
Put nicely. I've got two different directions here. So I guess one, just out of curiosity, as faculty, we look at it, or as faculty, I look at it, the department head is a rough position because you're catching it from all sides. Does it really improve much by the time you get to dean?
I think so. And,
okay.
I have been a department head, now a dean, and I think heads probably get tired of hearing it, but people do say being a head is the hardest job on the campus. And I think that is true, because by the time an issue gets to me, it's been through multiple layers by now. So the department head is really the tip of the spear for personnel issues, for faculty issues, for a whole host of things. So a lot of that gets resolved before I actually don't even know about it half the time. And so if it gets to my office, it's either really bad or in that case, if it's really bad, the decision's kind of easy, in some ways, because it's been through enough of a process. You're like, yeah, okay, we got to make some hard choices here. And so I don't agree with the statement entirely, but there's an element of truth in it. I talked to a guy once that had been a department head, became a dean, he went back and was a department head at different institutions. He said, being a department head is like being a dad. Being a dean is like being a granddad.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm saying is, if you have good people around you, which I do here, the day-to-day management, other people are really responsible for. You're getting updates, you're getting reports. So it does free you a little bit to think about the bigger, more strategic things. And the external relation piece is really that's my sort of responsibility, so to speak, to engage with upper administration, legislators, donors. A lot of that's fun. You get asked to go to more banquets than you can imagine, and cocktail hours, and
you get a lot of roast and almond covered chicken.
You and me have very different definitions.
Fun, right? But it's relationship building. So after it is, if it's every time you walk in a room, it's new people, that would be stressful. But over time, you get to know people, and you're building relationships, and that part is enjoyable. And heads do that too, but then they have that on top of kind of the having. Pretty not sole responsibility, but they've got the day-to-day, every day of managing that department too.
So I guess my other follow-up to something that you said, and I appreciate it because I follow the same mindset in my faculty position, is that at this point, at least in my career, publishing a paper is probably less impactful, especially across the state, than doing something that's like a podcast or a blog or something that's out in public. At your level, at that upper level, how does that look? How do you promote that? Because there's still a lot of our programs that are very academic core. And so maybe that's the extension side of us, that we're heavy extension, so we're really mindset out. But can that be promoted across all aspects of the division, or is that more of an extension thought process?
I think we all ought to think about impact and how it's measured. I do think, as somebody spent a long time publishing lots of journal articles, I think one thing it did do for me is it gave me credibility, so that when I did a lot of podcasts later and sort of started shifting my time allocation, that I wasn't just some random guy off the street. I had the credentials to prove that I could engage in the scientific community in a real meaningful way. So I don't ever want to undercut that scientific enterprise, but I do think it's important to undertake that work with an eye towards what are we doing to impact the people around us. And we've had a lot of craziness in our funding, our federal level too here recently. And you all know this because you've been around here. I've been encouraging us to think about being more entrepreneurial, thinking about other ways of generating revenue. Big chunk of that would be federal grant research resources. And then tells you how great a leader I am. I'm like let's focus on getting federal grants at a time right before, federal grants are in total chaos and we don't know.
Just have to work harder.
Exactly.
Work harder.
But that's a way of saying, we have been heavily reliant on state resources. And so if you look at our budget, I had sort of looked at it as a negative. We are like overly reliant on the funding from the state of Oklahoma for ag research and ag extension. Actually, in our current environment, and I engage with my peers, the fellow deans around the country, it's actually a great place to be right now because we're less subject to that chaos. But I am trying to answer your question, Brian, if it doesn't seem it.
Yeah.
But, so what does that mean? Who funds us? It's the taxpayers of Oklahoma that fund us. And if they can't translate what we're doing into meaningful changes in their life, that base of support for what we do when I go to the state capitol or go to others, that will erode over time. And I think even most faculty around here don't really appreciate that their salary is getting paid by the taxpayers of Oklahoma, and they need to see some value from that. So I really appreciate what you all do to get the information out there and to be engaged. And I think when I talk to our producers, these are the kinds of things they know. And I think it's a challenge for us sometimes is you have the institutional communications, and we want to have brand consistency, uniformity. And then on the other side, you got the people actually doing the work and creating the chaos and getting the information. But I always try to remember people like you all are our content creators, whether it's a journal article or a research trial or whatever. We can't say they're not consistent with their brand because if you aren't doing stuff, we have nothing to talk about. So I really, I think there's a happy way to try to let 1,000 flowers bloom. So I think one challenge for us, and this is not quite the question you ask, is in our way we think about how do we reward and promote faculty. Like this thing we're doing right here, right now, does not neatly fall in any category that we reward. And yet, I'm here. I'm spending my time with you. I find it extremely valuable, and I know our producers find it valuable. So we're kind of behind the times. Like, how do we count stuff like this and measure it in a way that you all can get, more pay raises if and when we ever get money to do it? I don't know.
Asterisk.
Exactly.
Asterisk.
I mean, extension has always been hard to measure. I mean, before there was podcasts, before there was social media, extension still wasn't easy because you had, how many people did you talk to? And you have somebody like Jason Warren who could do 2 or 3 meetings at a state level and have 3,000 interactions, and I could do 30 meetings at a county level and have 200 interactions at times. And so who was more impactful? Was it Dr. Warren or was it me? And so there was always extension was always fuzzy, and now I can't even imagine if you throw in the mass media aspects of what's going on. And it's just
I think when I was a department head, the part that made me most nervous was these are my colleagues, some of them friends. I'm going to have to decide how to allocate pay raises to these people. So I thought I want to be as transparent about it as possible. So I, from day one, created like a report for the department on academic publications, one for teaching, one for grant dollars. I had a bunch of different metrics, what kind of journals, how many co-authors, how big were the classes, how many credit hours versus, number of sections, whatever. And so, these quantitative things. And every time I'd have a report for extension, I'm like, like, what do I do here? So I created some reports, but at the end of the day, you kind of realize there is an element of this where you're, kind of putting your thumb to the wind and saying, it's hard to measure, but I've got this faculty member. I can see it. They're having an impact in ways that I'm not capturing, but you just have to have a little bit of humility and understanding that if you just only reward the numbers, you're not going to get cool and interesting stuff sometimes.
Well, and whenever I was back in Louisiana, because we interacted with growers, but our main constituents, so to say, from the ag side were consultants. And then they had 20, 30, 50 growers underneath them. So you taught one person, you're teaching 50 people.
Exactly right.
But you can't quantify that in a report and say, hey, by the way, they did, there was only 10 people there, but that was 500 people, and so I think the trainer things has also exacerbated, and that's been a long time coming, exacerbated this problem with extension of being able to quantify the value of people going, even just other growers now going to coffee shops and talking about this, and then it spreads like wildfire. And well, maybe not the best word.
That's another That's another podcast. By the way.
Sorry. But it spreads, through everybody else, just word of mouth kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a good point. Is you go look at, Josh, if you go do a training for CropQuest, which they have their annual CQ/IQ training every year, they're going to have 100 consultants in a room, and they run from Colorado through Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. You mark that down as you interact with 100 people. But you fat up their acres, it's probably 5 million.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so how much downstream is that? And it's extension. We do a poor job of actually. I get asked all the time by the new ones. Oh, when did you do a survey last time? Well, I haven't done a survey in 20 years. We should, so that we can
that
show
is
you.
From the administrative standpoint, one thing I always want to be conscious of. We can try to measure things a lot more, but then how much of your time would I require of you to start spending trying to measure things versus just doing the work, work that you're trying to be impactful.
And that's the I was very hesitant, and I didn't really interact with them up until much later in my career. Is we interact a lot with ACEL here, and it's like, okay, I'm not going to do surveys, but I'm going to put them on a grant. And then give them a little bit of money, and they're going to do surveys because that's their research. So they're just doing research then at that point in time, and that's what they do. And guess what? They do it a lot better than we could ever do.
That's why I work with Ag Econ, because I put one Ag Econ on. They love papers, and so I get all my published. I get Borson on a project, and I'm guaranteed a couple of papers. Now there might be a few arguments along the way, but that's
right. You need a guy like that in your department to keep you humble, because he will.
That's how you're going to put it?
Yeah.
That was Bill Ron. Wade sometimes comes to faculty meeting and says, well, this is our publication numbers, and this is what it's been the last 10 years. If you exclude Bill Ron out of it. He was an anomaly in himself.
I remember giving a departmental seminar here several years ago, and afterwards Wade Borson came to my office. He said, Jason, that just wasn't very good. Wow. Okay.
I don't know when I got on his radar, but I think I've been on at least one student committee every year now for him for probably 15 years. I've learned a lot of things I never knew about, and I've heard a lot of arguments I got lost in.
Oh, yeah.
Like between him and Dayton, those two could go back and forth, and they'd be talking things. So I'd be so confused as an agronomist. Whew.
We were talking about things that are hard to measure. Several years ago, I got asked to lead a panel and try to measure the value of data from the USDA. So we're in another one of these environments where they're trying to cut money and save budget, and sometimes that comes to NASS, the National Ag Statistics Service, cutting different reports or budgets. And so one of the things we realized in that is exactly what you're describing, Josh. Is the USDA puts out its budget. You can measure sort of how much was that downloaded, but what you don't see is then that gets turned around and repackaged by all kinds of consultants and others, and then used by other agents. So by the time, actually, a lot of times you see things that are using USDA data is never acknowledged, it's never there. And so that was, we write a report and say that, but you just realize that there's a lot of value that's being created that's almost impossible to imagine because it gets translated and spread out through these networks.
I mean, how many times have you ever had a colleague call you and say, hey, I'm going to use a little bit of your data, and you're just like, oh, yeah, fine.
Not mine, but I use theirs all the time.
We are the leech.
We are.
But okay, Brian, how many times have they called back and said, what was your number, on your meeting?
Yeah.
I mean, because you use a little bit of data, and you might have presented it to 70 people, but then they go to a meeting of 500, 1,000 people, and your data gets exposed to everybody. And just your name under there and an approval via an email. Yeah. And we could quantify things a lot better, but I think, again, as long as we have that focus that we're hoping to maintain value to our constituents outward, especially in Oklahoma, if not the greater, Southern Great Plains region, that's what we're focused on, right?
I mean, I was taught early, and I try to teach others by some good extension specialists that with extension being a hard metric to have as faculty, is one of the things that you can do or should try to do is get the constituents, the clientele, the commodity groups on your side. so that you have a support from the outside community if you need them. So that's always something that I've always kept in mind, is like, be working so that if I do have a need, I have a group I can go to, whether it's through funding, research, or even administrative, that I can call upon the wheat commission, or I can call sorghum group or what bid, and it's always valuable. But you're creating value to your clientele.
And that's I'd say a good way of saying when things are hard to measure, that's a good way of getting that kind of feedback, because they do, but they tell you if they're not getting from you what they need, right? And so you're getting that hard to measure impact feedback through those relationships that you build with those groups. And so I think that's a good piece of advice.
I can remember a soybean board meeting to where I got told, this looks really good. It was a great presentation. Not what we want to see, but it was a great presentation. I love your data, but I'd like to see something else. Okay, what do you want to see this time?
Great work, but it's worthless.
Here's my trip to Wyoming. Okay.
So Dean, you came in, we're sitting here in the new building. I would say you came in halfway, but that would probably be generous of halfway, like 3/4 of the way through the process. How's it been kind of steering the ship on this new building and all the benefits and challenges associated with moving in that you really didn't get to choose half of the things that are going on and everything here?
So when I was interviewing, I asked, "All right, this building, is it paid for? Is it? Do we have all the money?" And I got reassured, everything's fine.
As soon as you got in,
and then the very very first meeting I had when I got here, I was sat down and said, "We have no money." And by the way,
that was false advertisement. You told me.
Yeah, and by the way, this building is paid for. We have enough promises, but the cash is not all here. Yeah. And because donors will give pledges over time, and so I was like, oh yeah, okay. Well, so that was like day number one. You're like, these contractors that were putting up walls and wiring, they want to get paid today. They don't care that one of our generous donors said they're going to give us some money 2 years from now. Yeah. They weren't taking IOUs. That's right. So that was day number one problem, and nobody will ever see that. It doesn't go on any wall anywhere. But that was a good first couple of months. Is what can we do to make sure folks that have made commitments are following up on them and making sure they're feeling good about how things are going, and then how do we find the resources to fit this? Basically loan ourselves money. We'll pay pick from this pocket over here, and then when that money comes in later, we'll pay ourselves back. So that was one. The other one, I'd say, I hope I'm not misrepresenting his views or perspectives, but I think one impact I did have, that I had a strong feeling on, is this building was built for collaboration and a lot more open spaces and engagement spaces. And I like that. That's good. But I think one of the models was let's just randomly allocate faculty around the building to promote collaboration. And I didn't like, having come from a discipline background where I think it's important who you're around. I did put my footprint there and said, and this building isn't really built for this department is here.
Right.
But you can still group faculty sort of roughly together, and I'd say that's a decision I pushed and made, listening to faculty and just my own opinion.
Yeah. We supported that decision wholeheartedly.
And because I think this building is built, it's built in a way, even if y'all are in a couple of corners of the building, that we're still going to bump into each other. And I see it actually, we do bump into each other a lot more in this building than we did in the previous one. So that's like a small thing, but I think a big thing in terms of culture and impact, and that I was able to have a little bit of a influence on. The other thing you'd learn about, big organizations, it's just hard to make change. There's a lot of things going on. I'd say even with this building, there's things that you say, like, I want this to happen, and it's now we're in here a year, and I'm like, how has this not happened yet? So you just got to keep pushing, and trying to find things to do. But it's been a great space. But I think really one of the best things is, and I found it with even all the communications that came from my office, everything was geared towards fundraising for this building. And so that's actually been one nice thing, is to say, this is kind of done, and what's next? And how do we reshape what we're talking to people about and strategizing about the future? And so it was actually a great time to come in, and I appreciate Tom for being willing to step out when he did, because most people would say, like, I want to see this thing to fruition, but what he did is he gave me space to sort of finish up what he deserves the credit for finishing, while also giving that room to really look again at the future. So I really appreciate him for being willing to do that.
So as we wrap up, what is on the horizon? What is on your horizon? What is your short and long term visions?
Well, Brian, we got a strategic plan that's out on the website. We do. But, most people don't read those, and my attempt is not to. I told folks I didn't want to just write something that's glossy and sits on the shelf, but really, I just think about it more for my own personal accountability. And so, if you were to look in that document, there are my frequent co-author and good friend Bailey Norwood said, well, I see like the first 3 pages are platitudes that you have there. And I said, well, you write in fancy language, but when you look at the things that I kind of just describe them as what are the boundaries around what we're going to do, there's 5 things in there. And the words are a little fancier, but really what it comes down to is, are we doing things to increase agricultural productivity and farmer profitability? Are we doing things that give producers and consumers more options than they had before? Are we doing things to add value that make things healthier, tastier, better for the environment, whatever? Some of that will return more value to the farmer. Some of it will make things better for consumers. What are we doing to be responsible stewards of our natural resources? And then what are we doing to create transformative educational experiences for people on campus and off campus? And so I think like when we sort of ask, because I get lots of asks in my office for money, but one kind of thing is can you put it in one of those buckets? If not, we probably shouldn't be doing it. And some of thinking about what do you want to do in the future is not so much about what do we want to do as what are we not going to do.
Right.
And so, Bailey will call those platitudes. I kind of call them like, let's define our boundaries and think about what we're going to do. There are some specific things mentioned in there. And one is, for me, it's where am I going to spend my time trying to focus on resource generation? One of them is investments in facilities at our off-campus sites, so the agronomy farm and research center, both to support the wheat improvement team, but hopefully over time to support the other activities that are out there. So I don't need to tell you all that there are buildings and greenhouses out there that are 60, 70, 80 years old. Well, there's a Barn A that's probably 100 years old.
Yeah.
And so that is a priority for me, a high priority. And we're making progress on some of that. At least, the first effort is focused on the wheat improvement team, but we're hoping that can grow and continue. So that's an effort. There's another effort we're focused more on human capital, trying to stand up a beef center for excellence. So that's focused on creating an advisory board that generates some funds that we can direct towards research and extension efforts, some endowed chairs in that space. And, you can tell I'm not, when I think about what should we be focused on, what's the biggest crop we have in the state, what's the biggest animal industry we have in the state, and let's try to focus on those 2 things. So I'm not that smart of a guy to look out there and say, like, what are our producers doing? And if we can generate more resources to focus on those things, I think we could kind of help the industry. The other one would be value add, the Food and Ag Product Center. Actually, we were fortunate last year to get about $7 million in new investment. That facility was built 25 years ago, and it hadn't had a lot of upgrades and maintenance. They had lost, just like a lot of our units, they had lost a lot of people over time, and the budgets hadn't kept up. And so that's an area where, again, I think fits kind of squarely with value-added initiatives. And then I think just at a broad level, some of the things I know y'all are working on here, but data analytics isn't quite the right word. I've been struggling. It's not precision ag exactly, but we just know that the data side of, I guess AI would be the big buzzword today, but that whole confluence of generating data off the farm, using it in a way to make better managerial decisions. One form of extension I've always liked that I've seen, used in a lot of examples is creating decision aids and decision tools that can take that research-based information and that data and put it in a package that farmers can use to help not decide for them, but help them make decisions as a piece of input into their overall decision making. So that is another sort of piece of can we drive some resources towards that sort of activity.
And you come from the perfect background. I mean, the original getting things out was always Ag Econ. I mean, there's been spreadsheets available from the Ag Econ extension from the time there were spreadsheets.
That's right. And I think, I actually a couple of months ago went on the website, and there are a lot of spreadsheets there. And even as an economist, I had a hard time understanding half of them. So I thought, can we package, we have the ability to package these things in software and apps and other things that are much more user-friendly today. And in our real time, auto update with futures prices and current crop conditions, weather. Mezzanet's a good example where they actually do some of that. You get a lot of weather data coming in real time that we could package with apps. So that's an area where I'd like to see us make some investments and grow.
Well, Dr. Jason Lusk, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. This has been a lot of fun, and we look forward to having you back.
Anytime. Happy to do it.
Thank you for listening in on this conversation of the Red Dirt Agronomy podcast. And if you'd like to join the next discussion, leave us a message on our website, reddirtagronomy.com. Or you can send us a tweet. Our handle is reddirtag. We would like to thank Dr. Jason Lusk for joining us on the podcast. And again, if you get a chance, visit our website, reddirtagronomy.com, to find out more information about our guests or any of the resources we discussed on today's podcast episode. For Dr. Josh Lofton, Dr. Brian Ernell, and Dr. Radon Sherry, I am Dave Deacon, and we all want to thank you for listening. The proceeding is a copyrighted recording of Ag Now Media, LLC, 2025. And yes, all rights are reserved.